Killer clown cold case murder of Marlene Warren. She's the Wellington mom who was shot in the face nearly 3 decades ago by a killer dressed as a clown.
On May 26, 1990, Marlene Warren, who was 40 years old, and her son Joey, who was 21, were enjoying the weekend in their cozy Wellington home when Marlene heard the doorbell ring. A clown did it. Marlene was so happy because she thought someone had sent her a present, but a killer was hiding behind that makeup and outfit. The killer pulled out a gun and shot Marlene in the face without notice. Who killed Marlene, and why did they pick her? Keep watching to find out. Hi, and welcome back to our channel. If you are new here, please consider subscribing, as it helps us motivate to create more intriguing content for you. Let's have a look at the 1990 cold case finally solved in 2023, Marlene Warren's case. People who wanted to get away from the crime in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and West Palm Beach came to Wellington, Florida, which was known as a village. There were many events and parties in Wellington all through the year. The Winter Equestrian Festival was a well-known event that took place from January to April and drew horse lovers from all over the world. It had a number of contests and shows. The Wellington Bacon and Bourbon Fest was another popular event where people could try meals made with bacon and bourbon from different vendors. A nearby club called Mar-a-Lago was a popular place for famous people like Bruce Springsteen and Madonna to hang out. People feel safe and happy in the town because it has good schools and is a nice place to live. Many studies have found that Wellington is a pretty safe and peaceful place to live in terms of crime rates and safety. Wellington was one of the safest towns in Florida, and its crime rate was lower than the national average. On April 15, 1950, Marlene Warren was born. She grew up in Michigan, and she and her sisters loved spending time with their grandpa on the farm. She liked to bake, make art, and paint, particularly clowns. Everyone in her family liked clowns, and her parents even had a room for them. In 1965, when Marlene was only 15, she had her first child. She named him John Rains, after her husband. She had another boy named Joey later in 1969. After her first husband, John Rains, died in a car crash, Marlene had to raise her 2 kids on her own. In 1972, she married Michael Warren. Michael Warren was only 19. This made him younger than Marlene, who was 22. They moved from Michigan to where Michael's family lives in South Florida. Michael got a job as a meat inspector, but they also started putting money into rental houses, which made them a lot of money in the long run. Marlene took care of the rental properties, and Michael quit his job to start Bargain Motors, a place to sell used cars. He sold cars to people who could not buy them anywhere else because they did not have credit. Mike and Marlene bought their dream home in Wellington, Florida, at the end of the 1980s. Michael was caught in 1983 for changing the odometers on his used cars. He admitted guilt and got probation, but he was able to keep his business for a few more years. Mike and Marlene lived separate lives. Mike focused on his business and went to the races, while Marlene took care of the rental homes. In 1988, Marlene's oldest son, John Jr., who was only 22 years old, died in a car crash. His death made things hard between Michael and Marlene. During this time, Michael Warren met Sheila King, who was married to Richard Spudkeen, who worked for him. Michael and Sheila hit it off right away. At first, though, they did not tell anyone about their relationship, even though it was clear to everyone else. What did that day bring? On May 26, 1990, Michael went to the racetrack while Marlene, who was 40 at the time, stayed at home because it was raining. She was making breakfast for her 21-year-old son Joey and his friends, who were staying at their house. Someone knocked on the door around 10:45 a.m. Marlene thought it was a gift when she opened it and saw a clown holding flowers and balloons. She was pretty happy when a clown showed up at her door because she has always liked them. But the clown was holding a gun behind the balloons and the clown outfit. The clown took the gun out of his pocket and shot her in the face. Joey ran to the door when he heard the shots and saw the clown driving away in a Chrysler LeBaron. Marlene was dying on the ground, and a neighbor named Bill Kramer had also heard the shot. Some people ran out and said that someone had shot Joey's mother. 1990, paramedics took Marlene to the hospital, but she passed away there 2 days later. Marlene was a great person. She was nice, loving, kind, always polite, and respected everyone. But it was sad how she died. During the initial investigation into Marlene's killing, Joey saw a clown walking away, but all he could remember was that the clown had brown eyes. Joey's first description of the suspect to the cops was vague. He said the person had broad shoulders and big hands, but he did see the clown leave in a white Chrysler LeBaron, which was a key piece of information. Michael Warren was at first a suspect, but he had an alibi because he was at a racetrack. So the cops looked at his girlfriend, Sheila Keene, and the more they looked, the more evidence they found that pointed to her being involved. Why Sheila? At the time of the crime, there were rumors that Michael Warren and Sheila Keene were having an affair. Michael firmly rejected all of these, but detectives were looking into how they knew each other to find out why and how Marlene was killed. Sheila was also known by her birth name, Sheila Sheltra. She had been in trouble with the law since she was a child growing up in Central Florida. Sheila was known to be very pretty and strong-willed, and some even said she was wild. People often said that her long hair looked like Crystal Gale's. Sheila had a criminal record from a young age, including charges of stealing and theft. A few years later, her mugshot showed that she was happy and seemed unfazed by the arrest. People who knew her said that from a young age, Sheila hung out with older guys and bad influences. Sheila moved to Georgia to be closer to her husband Richard, who had a history of involvement with the Ku Klux Klan and had served time for drug-related offenses. With a 20-year age gap between them, Sheila showed her dedication by relocating to be near him during his time in jail. When Sheila's husband got out of prison in Georgia, he and Sheila went back to Florida, where Richard got a job with Michael Warren. Soon, the three former criminals started spending a lot of time together and doing shady things. Sheila once dressed up as a prostitute to meet someone in a hotel room who had bought a car from her. Richard and Michael, who were armed, took the car while she was in there. Sheila was also seen putting a gun to the buyer's head, and the three of them ran away. Over time, Michael and Sheila got closer, and Richard became less important. Sheila rented an apartment in Pine Ridge, and because Michael spent so much time there, the people there thought they were married. Co-workers of Michael and Sheila told detectives that they thought the two were having an affair. They would go out for long lunches and were very friendly with each other. There was a lot of proof that they were in fact having an affair. Police records say that Michael's mother told them about a time when she went with Michael to one of his races. She could tell that Michael and Sheila had something going on. So she asked Sheila if she loved Michael. Sheila said that she did, and Michael said that he loved himself in response. During this time, Michael's marriage to Marlene was on the verge of breaking up. A worker at the car lot said that Michael would come in angry after a fight with Marlene and offer $10,000 to anyone who would kill her. There were also rumors that Michael had said that if someone got rid of his wife, they would become rich and never have to work again. Michael and Sheila were both looked at as possible killers of Marlene after she was killed. Even though Michael was the most likely suspect, the police started to wonder if his lover could have done it. Most men who kill someone would shoot them in the heart, not in the face. This made people suspicious. As the police looked into the case more, the evidence started to point at Sheila instead of Michael. This made them think that she might have had a reason to do the crime. The investigation went on, and the police made it their top mission to find the white Chrysler LeBaron that Joey had seen. They found out that a couple had rented the car from Payless Cars, which was close by. When it was time to return the car, they got lost and called the wrong number from an ad in the phone book. Michael Warren put the ad out for his car lot, Bargain Motors, and the phone number was his. But Michael's advertisement looked a lot like an ad for the Payless car lot. The couple called the number thinking it was for Payless Cars. Someone at Michael's car lot told them to leave the car outside the gate with the keys in the windshield wipers. But not long after, the car was stolen. On the day of Marlene's funeral, detectives found a Chrysler LeBaron about 5 miles from the crime scene in a Winn-Dixie parking lot. Some of the hairs found in the car looked like they came from a plastic wig with orange and yellow fibers. But the DNA technology of the time was not good enough to figure out for sure what the fibers and hair samples were. Investigators also found the place where the suspect got the clown costume, balloons, and flowers, in addition to the car. 2 women who worked at the Spotlight Capazio costume shop told police that a woman came in a few days before the murder and asked for a clown costume, specifically Ruby's clown costume, an afro clown wig, Bob Kelly clown makeup, and a sponge nose. The shop employees first told the woman to come back the next day because they were closed, but the woman insisted on buying the outfit that night. She was about 5'8" tall, with brown eyes and long brown hair. She was wearing jeans and a men's work shirt, and the shop workers told the police that Sheila was the woman who had been in the store a few days before the murder. At the end of the day, Sheila's possible involvement in Marlene's murder was still being looked into, and more evidence started to pile up against her. One piece of evidence came from a nearby public supermarket where the clown's Mylar balloons were sold. An employee there saw a woman with long brown hair buy those balloons an hour and a half before the murder, and that employee was also able to identify Sheila from photos. Even though there was more and more evidence, the prosecutors did not think they had enough to make an arrest. In 1991, Michael and Sheila became the main suspects, but Michael went on a radio show with Joey to clear his name. During the interview, Michael stated that he had no involvement in the murder and denied any connection to it. When asked if he believed he was a suspect right from the start, Michael replied affirmatively, mentioning that he had never been married and expressing his willingness to provide further details on the matter. Joey defended Sheila, expressing disbelief that she was considered a suspect. He mentioned that it would be surprising to hear that she was the primary person of interest in the investigation and referred to her as a great sister. Even though Joey thought the clown was a man at first because of its size, evidence was starting to point toward a woman. Michael's story showed that he was at the racetracks at the time of the murder, so Sheila was the main suspect. But just when it seemed like the case was not going anywhere, a twist happened. In 1987, when Joey was about 18 years old, he was charged with attempted murder. The Warren family hired Christopher DeSantos as their lawyer. After a successful trial, DeSantos and Michael Warren were walking out of the courthouse, celebrating Joey's win. Michael then asked DeSantos if someone who hired a hitman to kill their wife would still be in jail. The lawyer was surprised, but he said that the law said a murderer could not inherit, except in cases of manslaughter or if the murderer was someone else. DeSantos also gave an example that he later regretted. He said that if someone wore a clown suit, their identity would be hidden, making it hard to get a conviction. He did not mean to tell Michael to dress up as a clown, but the point was that if Michael's name could not be proven, he could not be found guilty. In a way, DeSantos had given Michael a plan for murder. As the investigation into Marlene's murder went on, Michael and Sheila became suspects. Investigators also talked to DeSantos because they thought the clown figure might be getting back at Joey and his friends. But this conversation between DeSantos and Michael became a key piece of evidence. It made them wonder if Michael had taken the lawyer's advice and worn a clown costume to hide his identity while killing Marlene. As the investigation went on, it became clear that Marlene had been afraid of her husband before he killed her. She had told people that she wanted to divorce Mike, but was afraid he would kill her. This, along with what DeSantos said, suggested that Mike knew how he could get his wife's property after killing her. Even so, no one was arrested in the weeks after these facts came out because investigators needed more proof to move forward. As the months went by, the case stayed unsolved. Even though Michael and Sheila denied having a romantic relationship, their coworkers had their doubts. A year after Marlene's death, they let their guard down and took a vacation together to the Bahamas at a fancy hotel resort casino. Other couples saw them come in, and Sheila looked uncomfortable while Michael was loud and brash, which gave the police another clue. While this was going on, Michael chose to go on another radio show. The interviewer inquired whether Sheila had engaged in conversation with Michael. Michael replied that he had previously engaged in conversations with both Sheila and the other person. The interviewer then asked about the timing of Michael's last conversation with Sheila. Investigators started to look at Michael as a suspect in his wife's murder after he talked about it on the radio. They searched his business and got a warrant to look through his records. Michael had a history of tampering with odometers, and they found that he was doing the same thing at his car lot. They charged him with a number of crimes, including racketeering, odometer tampering, fraud, and theft. Even though Michael was sentenced to 9 years in prison, there was still no solid proof linking him or Sheila to Marlene's murder. The investigation seemed to have hit a dead end, but in 1997, new evidence came to light that would bring the case back to life. In 1997, a man told the police that Michael Warren had killed his wife. The man was the son of a Bargain Motors employee who had recently died, and he said that his father had made a shocking confession to him on his deathbed. He said that his father told him that all the answers to the case could be found by pulling up a car that was submerged in water. He even told the man where to find the car. This was a big clue, and investigators thought they could finally solve the case if they could find the murder weapon and costume. They sent divers to the spot and found the car, but there was nothing important in it. This setback sent the investigation back to the beginning, and the case went cold again for a while. Michael Warren and Sheila Keene chose to get married in Las Vegas in 2002. The case of Marlene Warren's death was still unsolved, but Marlene's parents were sure that Sheila was the killer clown. But in 2013, the case was reopened, and Sheila was again a prime suspect, especially since she was married to Michael. The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office got a grant to look into cold cases, including the Wellington clown murder. They formed a task force with members from the state attorney's office and the FBI to look at the evidence and talk to witnesses. The task force submitted new evidence for DNA analysis, which helped them get the indictment. This included DNA samples from different suspects in the case, like Michael and Sheila. It also included possible DNA samples found in the clown wig and other hair strands that were inside the Chrysler LeBaron. Mike and Sheila had started a new life in Abingdon, a small town in Virginia. Sheila had even changed her name to Debbie, and neighbors said they were friendly and in love. Just across the border in Tennessee, they had opened a popular fast food restaurant called the Purple Cow. Investigators eventually found Michael and Sheila at the restaurant. Even though they were the main suspects, they were not on the run or trying to hide. They were still working and living their lives publicly. It seemed like they had finally moved on from their past and were doing well. People usually thought of Michael as a laid-back and happy person, but an incident with one of his neighbors showed a different side of him. Apparently, Michael took some rocks from his neighbor's property without permission. When confronted about it, he said that they should be neighborly about it. The neighbor said that the neighborly thing to do would have been to call the police. Michael and Sheila seemed to have a perfect life in Abingdon, Virginia, but they were hiding a dark secret. At a party one night, Sheila, who was drunk and called Debbie by her coworkers, told a scary story about how she had gotten away with murder in Florida. In Florida, detectives worked hard on the case and used the latest DNA technology to find a possible suspect in the murder of Marlene Warren. The evidence pointed to one person, Sheila Keene Warren, also known as Debbie, who had casually told her coworkers about her deadly secret. On December 26, 2017, Mike and Sheila were driving back to their city of Abingdon from Vermont in their Cadillac SUV when they were pulled over by the police. Sheila was arrested, but she did not ask why. Instead, she asked if her husband was also being arrested. Sheila was arrested because she was charged with first-degree murder with a gun, which was the same crime that had been unsolved for 27 years. Sheila had been a prime suspect from the beginning of the investigation, but she had managed to stay out of jail until that day. Now she faced the possibility of spending the rest of her life in jail. As Sheila was being taken to the police station, the moment was caught on video, and then a mugshot was taken. In the mugshot, she is smiling, just like she did in her first mugshot when she was a teenager. The difference between how horrible the crime was and how happy she seemed was chilling. The trial started in March 2020. The prosecutors laid out their case, showing evidence of Sheila's connection to the crime, such as witness statements, fibers in hair found at the crime scene, and the new DNA analysis that linked her to the clown costume. Witnesses also talked about Sheila's interest in clown costumes and trips to the costume shop. The defense said that the evidence was weak and not enough to prove Sheila's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. They pointed out problems with the investigation and the possibility of other suspects. However, the jury found Sheila guilty of first-degree murder, and she was sentenced to life in prison without the chance of parole. Justice had finally caught up with the killer clown, bringing closure to the Warren family and putting an end to a mystery that had been haunting the town for decades. This is the story of the Wellington Clown murder, a strange story of betrayal, trickery, and a mask that looked harmless but had a deadly secret hidden inside. What do you think of our video? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from me again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go. Thanks for watching.